We've got a very, very, very interesting panel now, which will last for 75 minutes. So we aim to finish at 12:45. There are no PowerPoint presentations. There is only discussions, and it's very much discussion between our panelists and with you. So we will leave the lights in the room on. Andrea, agreed? And so it's an ongoing discussion, and that's what I love about PQ Talks. People come and listen, talk to artists, and share ideas, and it is really a meeting globally. I will not introduce all the speakers because this panel is moderated by Andrea Dunulovic. Yeah, and it's going to be called Afterlife. Where do exhibitions go after they die? Andrea, take it away.
Is this on?
It's on.
It's on. Okay. So it's on. So first of all, thank you all for coming. It's a pleasure to be here and to be with this group of people. And firstly, I would like to introduce the speakers of the day, and I'll probably read out the short bios that are already on the website. So starting with Jovana Karaulic, Vice Dean, Assistant Professor of the Faculty of Dramatic Arts and team member of the Faculty of Dramatic Arts Interactive Arts Laboratory in Belgrade. She has worked in production and produced numerous theater and film projects and is the co-founder of Green Art Incubator in Belgrade. On my right, Sven Jonke, the founding member of Numen for Use, a collective working in scenography, industrial design, spatial design, and art. His and their work are featured in public spaces, galleries around the world. And I'll mention our PQ roles as well. Sven Jonke was part of the jury that handed out the awards last night. On my left, first Miodrag Huč, the co-director of the Department for Critical Urban Education of ZKU, Education, and board member of Urban Praxis, and he works in the intersection of architecture, urbanism, urban politics, scene design, theater, as well as social work. Currently, the curator of the Serbian Exhibition of Countries and Regions, and since yesterday, winner of the award for community activation. And on the far left, Filip Jovanovski, a visual artist with a distinctive interdisciplinary approach that explores different media and their connection, including visual art, theater, video, film, and spatial installation. Filip, the winner of the Golden Triga in 2019. My name is Andrija Dinulovic. I'm a producer focused on the conception, articulation, and production of space. I'm an assistant professor at the Faculty of Technical Sciences in Novi Sad and the co-founder of Studio Turbina, a production studio from Belgrade. So that was the formal introduction. And now just a few words about the topic and how we came here, and then we'll start with a discussion. Discussion is open to anyone. First, we'll have a short one circle of talks between ourselves, after which we will open the discussion for the audience, and we would like that part to be much more active than the first one. So we all come from different backgrounds and different experiences. But myself, coming from a production background, this was a topic that came to my mind 2019, the first time, once we finished the PQ Serbia last time, with the idea of transferring the exhibitions from here to Novi Sad and making them monuments of scene design in Novi Sad, with the idea of making permanent installations in public space. That went horribly wrong, because the concept was great, but the production concept was not that great, and all of the materials were left in a public space courtyard in the faculty for, I would say, a year or 18 months. Somebody can correct me. After which we decided to use the materials in our workshop for a different project. And since then, we were thinking about these, working in production, we were bringing back home numerous tons of materials from the exhibitions from all around Europe and the world, and we had no idea what to do with them. So the first aspect of the thinking of the topic was the ecological aspect. What do we do with the materials? Do we recycle them? Do we upcycle them? Do we reuse them? So what do we do with what's left? But shortly after that, we realized that the ecological aspect is not the only one, and it is the first one that comes to mind, but it's not the primary topic for us. But the different types of afterlives exist, in our opinions. And today we will try to talk about these different layers of afterlives of exhibitions, which include the spatial aspect, the artistic aspect, the technical aspect, the program aspect, the people aspect, the location aspect, the infrastructure aspect. And that's why all of these people are here, to talk about different perspectives on the same topic. So having in mind that the ecological aspect was the first one that came to mind, I think that Jovana should start. With the topic and idea of bringing green practices into production processes and bringing them, like how do we bring production processes green? So how do we start thinking about green practices while we're working, while we're conceiving a piece, and not today? So not today in regarding PQ, after an award or after publicity, I don't know, whatever. So how do we come to those topics before? So let's start from that.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for having me today here, and for the opportunity to share thoughts and ideas about this topic. So I will go maybe a bit wider, but I must share opinion that we until recently didn't know how to think and feel this topic, and that's put us in a position, in confused position of what are the approaches that we need to think. In last decade, it slowly changes, but we are still don't know what is our position in this framework. And in that sense, we are, how to say, this topic for me is in a strong relation to the notion of values. So if we understand values, or if we understand what kind of future, what we would like to have, then we can think about remodeling our working procedures, production processes, and reconstruction of the artistic practices in general, or how we can translate these small moves into the movement. And in that sense, when we come to your answer, Ian Garrett one mentioned that it is important to think how we do what we do, and that we need to think about the reconsideration of our practices from the perspective of aesthetic and narrative, of course, but also from the perspective of working procedure, production processes, and etc. And we need to look at our field as a kind of a unique platform for the social changes, and in that sense we need to incorporate new philosophies. We are now here to speak about the kind of post-production, but this thing when it comes to production, and of course if we come to creative processes, it starts from pre-production and from idea, how to incorporate these new paradigms into our ideas, and then this kind of new philosophies can direct us to the new creative concepts which are not threatened from the position of climate crisis, but it is kind of remodeling the whole practice. So it is very complex matrix in which we are now, where we need to understand our individual roles as humans, as professionals, but also we need to make kind of agreement about our collective role in rebuilding new positions. And it also depends on context. It is not everywhere the same, and we are not in position to rethink all these things without understanding the context and the infrastructure. And we need to think about new paradigm in an old structure, so it is very complicated in our professions to start from the perspective of, I don't know, creative processes, but also from the working procedures in our own projects, but also in organization in which we are working. So that is maybe for the beginning.
So we'll come back to that. But what I forgot to mention in the introduction, the second project that was quite important in submitting the application for this talk was a project we did with Numen in Novi Sad, one of your tape installations, the last one. So I suppose you're all familiar with what Numen does. If not, Google it. But Sven, you work in different aspects of creative work. But let's say if we focus on the ephemeral part, the ephemeral installations that you do, all of the installations that you do in public spaces or inside, but mostly public spaces, how do you think that these installations relate to the space? What happens after they are uninstalled or deconstructed? Because we had one in Novi Sad with a strict concept of what we will do after, and that failed as well. So we had the idea of making a new piece out of a tape installation, which was in the conceptual phase quite good, I would say, but in the production phase after that also failed. So what are your experiences in working it for now? Okay, 49 tapes, or what was the number, and different installations. So how do these installations end their lives, and what happens to the space in which they were set up? So should they leave a fragment of themselves in the space, or only in the memory, or should they interact with the space after the installation is finished, etc.? And then you can come up back to Jovan and the eco subject.
Yes, our objects or structures are all lightweight constructions, so they had to be built out of materials which are not high tech, but which have some kind of technical advanced characters. So we had to work with a lot of plastic, of course, in this case, which was not such a problem when we started with this like 15 years ago. And it's interesting that at that time it was not such an issue. Today there is no installation where this issue is not solved in some ways. So this was really the transition which we witnessed in this 10 years. And yes, it's a great experience to be on this turning times. And we had, of course, this problem of the material, and we got critics from all sides, of course, on this topic, and we started to solve it in different ways. So there's this very concrete solution to find a biodegradable material, some natural material, which was unfortunately not existing. So we had to search for it and to develop our own materials. So we started with a German company through 6 years of development to produce at the end a material which we could work with. And the first piece was done like 4 years ago. It was in the Garage Museum where the topic was ecology. And it was the third version of this material, because this material is still evolving. Today you have on the market several other companies producing similar materials. So we are trying to substitute it. Of course, the problem is in reality that this material is 20 times more expensive than the normal one. So a lot of galleries, museums cannot afford it, yes, but this question or this problem is now, I think, on some other level. It's like the politics who should deal with it and make it affordable. But I think for us, that at least we tried and we got a material at the end which was usable for us, is something where we cannot go further. So this is, but I have to say also one thing, that in art, for example, and especially in this very technologically ambitious structures, you cannot make compromises always. So, and art is not really, or it's the question of compromising yourself because of ecology is a question. This is what we can also talk about. So, and the other part is, of course, what happens to the space. So we are making structures which are like parasites. They are always invading public space or gallery space. I think the difference is huge, to work outside or inside for professionals, or outside for the public general. And when you have this kind of, when you're invading a space, when you are giving a new example what this space could be, then this is what you said, it's something which stays also in the memory of the people who were witnessing this, who passed this space for a time quite like our structures are standing there for a month or two, it depends. Outside it's of course limited. This biodegradable tape, it is really falling apart through the sun and the rain. We witnessed after 3 months already, it's like getting really almost disintegrated. And yes, in the Garage Museum, for example, they took the structure down, put it into a box which had a window, and it was outside. It had to rain because you need humid. You had to put some organic material, mix it with this biodegradable material, and you need, of course, also darkness. So this is why it was a closed box, and it was there for, I don't know, for a year, I know, but maybe still. So this was also part of the installation, to have at the end this, to see this falling apart of the material.
Well, or maybe, so Jovana would like to add something, and then we'll come back to this.
Yeah, I just want to add something on Sven's thoughts. Yeah, you mentioned something that is very important, and it also have a connection with the infrastructure and materials and incentives. And it is not, my opinion is that, an opinion of the organization that I'm coming from, Green Art Incubator, that we need to go in two directions: capacity building of institution organization that can support authors in their creative development in the sense of green transition and green philosophy. And another one is in the direction of the policies, because arts and culture is usually missing link in a sense of development green policies within the field. So we don't have really real support from cultural policies in development this topic. So when we are talking talking about the responsibility, it can't be just responsibility on authors to develop green concepts without any incentives or support. You mentioned 20 times higher prices of materials or materials that doesn't exist and things like that. But if it is not part of the whole systematical changes, it is not something that can be described as our future in art and culture. Yeah, I just want to add that.
Yeah, thanks. So we can give back, Joanna. So I would just want to get back to a thing Sven said, because I think those are two important topics that we can relate to afterwards. Firstly, the introduction of a biodegradable material, whatever it is, brings you, in my point of view, a whole different ephemerality, if you can say it like that. There is no deinstallation of the work anymore. So there is no dismantling and what do we do with it afterwards. It's an organic end of an installation. So which would bring us one of the concepts of the topic. But what I wanted to ask you, if we put aside the biodegradable tape now, or any material, is it, in your opinion, is it okay to recycle an artistic work into something else? That's what we were talking about a few days ago. Is that all right? Having in mind the process, the artistic work, the technical work, is it okay to dismantle it and build something else without a notion of what happened before, in your opinion only?
Yes, of course. I think it would be okay that this is a part of the concept, so that maybe you are thinking in the beginning how we wanted to make another object out of the structure, and I think yes, this is what should be our goal. But with the biodegradable, of course, you have other solutions. We are working also a lot with some plastic net. This net, for example, you can recycle completely. So we are sending the material always back to the company. So we buy the material and we send it back, and they are reusing maybe. I think it's almost 50% in a new material is the old material involved. So yes, I think that what before very often also our installations get destroyed or reused. We are also working with students very often during our process and let them think what we could do or they could do with this structure, and very often they are making a second installation out of these parts. It's a very organic structure, form, which when you cut it in pieces, it looks really like a body parts, and it's very inspiring to go on thinking and to see what's possible to and how to exhibit this actually. So and one also a gallery had this wish that when we were cutting down this object and it was on the floor like a shedded skin, like an old skin, we left it there for another 2 weeks in the gallery to leave it like a dead body. So because this is such an ephemeral structure, through this 2 months of exhibition, it gets also old. It's like it's something which is from a young skin turns into an old body, which is getting wrinkles and is sagging. And then when we cut it down and left it on the floor, it got a new poetic dimension. So these things are happening through the process, and yes, it's always a question.
Okay, now I think we should switch to the left side, which is not intentionally, but a whole different concept with Philip. We were talking about, so now we're talking about space and spatial installations, but when you work, the thing that came to our minds while we were talking was the program. And the idea of reinventing the same idea, the same program, I wouldn't say recycling it because I don't like the sound of it, but recycling an idea in different formats of work. So starting with a building or a story of a building, transferring it to a play, transferring it to a performance that came to PQ, transferring it then to an exhibition that's now set up in the Trade Fair Palace. So how does that start in your concepts? Do you think about that in front, or do you like freestyle along the way in these reinterpretations of a same idea in different scales?
Actually, we are developing this concept, but it started maybe more, which is important to mention, from the context, specific context in Skopje. What I mean in the terms of context, we are actually developing, and how we started this project with the building, we are developing the project or exhibition or performance from the resource. So that's how we started to work with the building. The resource were the citizens who live there. So from that position, we program the exhibition, and we develop this. Now, part of that is shown at this PQ in a platform city as a stage, where we are developing this as a platform where we are more focused on the research, and then we're trying to use the city as a resource. For example, the exhibition of the students, there is no materiality. There are only instructions how to use the city. So there are no production, no leftovers. So we were experimenting. Is it possible in the terms of what you're saying? And this appeared from the context, from the needs, from the resources in our specific context, which I'm often joking that, especially in Macedonia, in the theaters, because I often work in black box theater as a scenographer, there are skills only for putting some still on the stage. There are no some specific skills. So from that, this is the context. So I don't think that we should go to the, how to say, deeper technology, but more in creating relations, if you think in that.
Okay, and
or
quite
reusing or upcycling, as we were talking with Mitch
but
someday.
quite specifically, do you have any idea when the program ends? Your program, when does it end? Do you have the idea of, will it make a full cycle and come back to the building, or will it ever end?
It depends how much content and how much need it has. It's nice that you mentioned, because I also exhibit this. We started in the site specific, then transform it in the exhibition, then go back to another. It depends on the needs and on the problem, maybe. What we want to say, for example, we worked in the past 2-3 years on these brutalistic abandoned buildings in Skopje, and as a stage, as a resource. For example, some of them are privatized. We cannot do anything formally, but we are making some content, how to say, interventions connected with the local context, which somehow give life to this project. So we are not building, we are actually reusing somehow.
So maybe it's a good moment to introduce Miodrag to the conversation. Starting maybe with the idea of the PQ projects from Serbia, and what is the second life for the second round of programs, and what are your conceptions of what is after that? So the whole program, people, spatial infrastructure aspects of what happens after PQ.
Yeah, I'll start with the fact that you mentioned already that before we start design of the pavilion, I was also personally a bit, irritated about like what's going on with all these pavilions, where they end up. And as you remember, I was asking you to put me the whole design in one Excel table, to control the really all kind of elements of. And we didn't know what will be, we didn't talk about aesthetics of it. So we start from a kind of production needs. And I decide to work with a steel, with a scaffolding, which is very sustainable. you know, although it sounds a bit kind of strange comparing to biodegradable tape, for example, but still, you know, it's an endless loop of recycling, you know. Second, the whole design, in the design process was incorporate a couple of layers of let's say, afterlife. And the first and, let's say, the most banal, it's modularity. You know, so modularity, you know, it's well known in architecture as a, you know, way to even upcycle something. But I would rather call pre-cycling. So we were already knowing that modularity is not just to, you know, play with the form, but play with the context. And in that moment came idea to put the wheels on the pavilion and say, okay, maybe the pavilions could be the mobile infrastructure, or can become a cultural infrastructure of us, let's say us team of a Serbian pavilion. And then this opens up 1,000 interesting ways what means after, you know, and we end up with the idea, okay, maybe the PQ is the beginning of the project where we just test the structure and load it with a program. And program were rare people from Serbia, you know, so they become, first of all, also some kind of, we reconnect them, all they know, I mean, belonging to, let's say, the same maybe scene, but this is the maybe first layer, you know, creating program means also reconnecting people and creating some alliances maybe in between them. Second is the pavilion will move from this, let's say, maybe safe environment of theater producers and, you know, people around theater that feel comfortable working in you know, environment of arts and performance, to move the pavilion now in Serbia as a traveling device for, you know, maybe political education or other forms of interaction between people, you know. So that's I think let's say the important second layer to use the theater, you know, methods and technology to come to people that usually are not really into relations beyond the social relation they already know, you know. So kind of structure of provocation for, you know, it can be on the parking lot of Lidl in the small town. You know, I was making this kind of, you know, radical theater approaches. And then, of course, maybe for me the most important, building the team around this cultural infrastructure. The students, they are, you know, today maybe just technical team or program team are the ones that are going to, you know, those are the afterlife, you know, they will load the new, they could professionalize, they could understand, you know, also world outside of their kind of bubble, and they can become some kind of agent of change that is needed for our society. So I think it has also this kind of slightly political dimension. So in that sense, I think its design was really influenced by this kind of, you know, afterlife, I would say.
Okay, I would just like to describe a bit more what the concept was, because I think the concept came from, I would like to think, from a collaborative process that has been going on directly for 8 or 9 months, where the first idea of the pavilion was to put it in a trailer. So that was the first thing we got as an artistic input, buy a scaffolding trailer, which will fit all the scaffolding and the piano and everything else, so we can travel around and go to PQ like that. And what I would like to start now and finish with in this part of the talk is the problematics between what we started with. How does a concept go into production? Because once you have a good concept and the idea of a trailer was fun for us, you come to a set of real problems. You can't have a trailer crossing the border, for example, from Serbia to the EU, if it doesn't have a roof and if it doesn't have different paperwork stuff. So the trailer cannot be attached to different types of vehicles, etc., etc. And then, of course, the financial part of it, where these afterlives are not really understood, recognized, or are rarely recognized as parts of initial projects, especially from institutions or whoever is the active power. So do you have an idea, that's for anybody, what is the methodology of bringing a concept to a production process, which even Medanica was talking as well about, how do you transfer a concept to something that's real in physical space. So that's for anyone. And then after that, I'm looking at the timer here, we can include the audience with your own questions or topics around the subject. So yeah, maybe first for Miodrag and then Jovan.
Yeah, I could refer to the direct project we were talking. I think it was important to think about this scaffolding as a cultural infrastructure that, you know, use just modularity as a frame, but after there is no money, you know, that you can basically look for it with a good program, you know. So I think, you know, building the basic program shows potentials, you know. So, you know, Afterlife is also imagining different financial models that could, but it's much better for, if you talking from the position of funder, if you come to funder and they say, I have already something, you know, they really like that. And so, super, we can, you know, finance your program, or we can finance your trailer, or we can finance your whatever, cost of your team, or, you know, so I like to work with, you know, having a very strong scaffolding, and then in between, you know, being elastic, both kind of team-wise and financially, and you know, like having some kind of rhizomatic thinking, you know. So the growth, it's also can be faster, slower, depending on factor, weathers, in the, you know, in the also about motivation of team, you know. I'm just expecting after PQ our team being, you know, down with energy, and then we start in September. So these all things that are part of production, you know. So that's in this particular case, you know. But yeah.
It really depends from the case to case, but in general, if we are thinking about that, it is really important to try to achieve this goal through some, you mentioned open collaborative practices or understanding between professionals, but also from the perspective of organizations. And if we are thinking about how to translate concept to production processes, that we are talking that middle one, production stage, and in that stage we have knowledge that we have to do something, but we don't have a lot of skills and tools how to implement, how to incorporate. So my understanding of that is on several layers, from the angle of informal education, sharing knowledge, collaborative understanding, learning models, and etc. But on another level, we need to think about education and at our faculties, how to bring these concepts into ideas. I think that is very important into the first ideas, how we are developing creative ideas, creative processes, creative and the development projects in that perspective. And we at the Faculty of Dramatic Arts, we are doing on that, and we are just implement several subjects on that topic. Also, we understood our position as social agent, and we are now implement solars on a roof of faculty and things like that, which are messages not just for our students and for the, I don't know, electricity efficiency, but also for the whole society in a sense of understanding these topics. So when we come to the production processes, we need to work on training skills and how to inspire, how to reshape our current positions, and how to orient it towards this new concepts. And when we come, sorry, for the on third stage, which is post-production and afterlife, these all concepts are really important, but we are not talking about them in general, I think, at all. I'm always on some panels that we are talking about the green transition, but what with the programming and concept and the reconstruction of understanding what after, it is something that we are not talking. We are talking about reducing, recycling, and things like that. But the new life of the previous project is not something that is currently in our center of dialogue.
Yeah, well, that was the idea of bringing the panel here, because we are aware that the green practice and the ecological layer of the topic is all around us, but have realized that the other layers are not really in the focus of our talks, and much less the focus of our practices. And I do have a problem with you were telling that we were not talking about it enough. I think that we're talking about things too much, and I would like to bring them back to practices and work on them. So maybe I'm looking at the timer again. So maybe it's good to introduce the audience as well, particularly in these three concrete topics. One would be the what Sven was talking about, the biodegradable, but not biodegradable in terms of recycling, but in terms of an artistic approach. The other topic would be this programming afterlife and the modularity of a space, so to say, and whatever else you would like to add to the panel would be appreciated. And the third one would be this was, I think, the first time that we worked on a design starting with the production. I think so. Miodrag, the team, and myself. So we started with the production process. We started with thinking about how long does the PQ last? What will happen afterwards? Who organizes it? Who finances it? What are our spatial capacities in Serbia? What are people capacities in Serbia? What are time capacities? So all of this came into the topic before we had the first design, because the first design came, I don't know, 3 months after we spoke the first time. So I think those are the three topics I would address the most, but anything else would be also welcomed.
Okay. Thank you very much, Andrea. Thank you very much to the panel. We have time for questions, and there are already hands. So Louise or I, please just raise your hands, and we'll run with the microphones. Please, if you could introduce yourself first.
Sure, of course. I'm Andrew Freeberg. I'm a set designer, video designer, director from the United States. Miodrag, I loved the term that you introduced, pre-cycling, right? Like thinking forward, what are you going to put in the world what are you going to put in the world, and how do you see it going forward in the world? And Andrea, what you were saying about sort of the tension between how do you reflect on these processes, how do you reflect on what's going forward, versus, I think if I understood you right, Andrea, like take it, like just get back to the process, just fucking do it, right? Don't overthink it, don't get stuck behind the table. How I'd want to synthesize this, where my mind went is pre-cycling, not your scaffold, not just your scaffold, not just your modular physical parts of the exhibition, but the conceptual components too. Like, what are you, I think going around the PQ, this is my third time here, like, what do I see still showing up? Has it been reflected on? Has it been transformed? And what new things are being introduced, right? Like, I guess I would call it the ecology of thought or the ecology of creativity. Like, what, I wonder, I know this is open-ended, but could you guys reflect on the tension between reusing, reimagining, reshaping concepts that already exist versus throwing new things out, putting things into the world, and hopefully changing the discourse with those, if that makes sense?
So maybe we can begin with what brought the problem, I think. The problem was brought from a good side, so to say. It has come up with site-specific installations, mostly. So PQ, as well as Venice Biennale and different festivals, have developed into festivals that nurture site-specific installations, which is something that we think highly about, but with what makes problems in the post-production phase. Because if something's made specifically for a site, especially if it's made specifically for a site in a technical term, then we have the problem of what to do with it after the festival. So that's how I think Miodrag came to the program. Maybe you can talk more about the program after the PQ, because we saw PQ as ground zero. We didn't see PQ as the project that we finished with. We saw it as ground zero from where we start. And I think maybe you can reflect on it more.
Yes, I think we were mostly thinking how the, let's say, upcycling of a scene design could provide the space for a communication which can be not only repetitive but allowed us to think of how we communicate today. You know, it was really, for me, it was a striking point. I just realized, you know, like we are not talking to each other anymore on the way how I used to talk, you know, like due to the, you know, many, I'm not really techno-skeptic, but I think that the conversations are moving somewhere else, and table, that's why the central table and, you know, some kind of liquid that we use to start our conversation, you know, they are not just kind of banalities of I think we need to sit on one table. You know, very often we have a miscommunication and even conflicts and clashes because we are losing the ability to basically talk about things. You know, it's just everybody has its own tunnel of values, identities, and some kind of, you know, feeds of its own, you know, and we just sometimes need to set up the topic. And, you know, in our pavilion, topics were very simple, you know, citizens assembly, taking responsibility, whatever, you know, community work, you know. And then we just realized that in our pavilion, very interesting people are hanging because they just want to talk. You know, it's just, you know, they're tired of, you know, being flooded by good images, by, you know, concepts and all this kind of, you know, stuff, you know, and especially if you have a, you know, really shortened span, attention span, and you have to see 120 pavilions in one day, you know, this concept is already, you know, problematic on many levels. You know? So we were just thinking, you know, cool down in Serbian pavilion, tell me who you are, what you're doing, and what is your fucking problem, and maybe we can just talk, you know. And I think this really, we need this also in our country, to travel, to come to village and ask people, you know, not just what you need, but, you know, what you want to talk about, you know. And I think this was kind of, and then what we need for that, we need entrance, square, table, roof, you know, and then design starts from the things like framing the conversation, you know. And then, you know, like sometimes conversation were like 3 hours, you know, and people really need to talk, you know, you just have to ask them, you know. So I'm going a bit beyond the let's say topic, but I think this is also after work is to provoke dialogue that was not there, you know, and this we desperately need in our country to, you know, reconnect. You know, there's so many interesting people, but they just don't talk to each other, you know. So and this was kind of my contribution to this work. Yeah. If somebody wants to, maybe another question. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Catherine Sandys, and I'm one of the co-curators of the UK Hello Stranger exhibit. So please come, welcome to the UK. Please come and visit. I think I really love visiting your exhibit. I've been there a couple of times and enjoyed the wit and the humour, I think, in the conversations as well as the serious issues. I think it's sort of, we complement each other quite well, yours and ours. And we took some time in planning actually how to get to where we are, partly in the fact, similarly, it's kind of lots of engaging conversations around the UK, but also the materials as well. Similarly, we took a modular structure with items that can be sourced locally, which we've got a lot of stuff from here in Prague. So we brought very little with us. But we had to plan for a long time because it's something in the UK, I don't know if you're aware, we have the Theatre Green Book in the UK, and it's the main thing is thinking about planning and how you work very carefully, because of course we get into that cycle where you get to the point of opening an exhibition or a show and you have to work very quickly sometimes, and that's when you just blow it by spending loads of money very quickly. So yeah, I'm just really interested in hearing a bit more about how the time scale really for you and how you went about planning to make sure that you maintain the integrity of what you've achieved, I think.
Yes, you're right. I mean, somebody has
If someone else wants to say something more, you can. I don't know. Or if you could specify what is the question, or what would you like to hear more about?
Yeah, just how you thought about the planning in it, because, you know, how long you took really, and
Okay.
at
First,
what point you
Jovana,
started.
and then I'll...
Yeah, it is something that is super important in a topic of afterlife. I think that it is really in connection of circle, and we need to think about the pre-life. And when we think of in the stage of pre-life, we need to plan all these process stops and stages that we go through to come to this new perspective of new direction of the project when it ends firstly, and then have another direction. So I really think it is the planning, when we come to planning, and from the perspective of production, that is the field that I'm coming from, the pre-life is the most important part of the project when we are creating idea and when we are creating strategies, creative strategies, but also production strategies, how we will translate then into the new stages, new life of the project after we finish first stop. So I think it is super important to understand whole circle.
Maybe to add concretely for the pavilion that we were talking about. So the idea is to have two types of the afterlife. So one would be the infrastructure that would be remain in the faculty. We come from a faculty at Center Serbia, which is the Oyster Center Serbia, is at the faculty, and the scaffolding will, in one type of the afterlife, be an infrastructure for the use of students, collaborators with the faculty, etc. And then it will have these traveling formats, which will be organized also by the same team, but will include different artists, groups, whoever wants to participate, and will be the traveling exhibition. So those are the two formats that we will try and produce in the following months or years.
Thank you very much. We have a question over here.
Hi, my name is Zoe. I'm with Concordia University, the student pavilion, so I'm in my first year of scenography. When I look at this question of like, where do exhibits go after they die, as a theater student doing a lot of research, I often quite literally have trouble finding pieces after they've gone, right? So I'm wondering how much you actually consider this idea of archive and preserving the memory of your installations so that they may be shared and consumed by people everywhere.
Well, so maybe I can relate from the production part of what we do. Different scales of projects give you different opportunities or not opportunities. For example, now in Venice for the Biennale, the Serbian pavilion is made out of 14.5 tons of material, which we really don't have the capacity of reinventing it again in Serbia. So it will be re-exhibited once, and after that, we're not really sure what will happen. And how we started thinking about the topic, all of these exhibitions came back to the workshop. So everything came back to Serbia, came back to the workshop that we work in, and then we started thinking about what do we do with it afterwards. And sometimes fragments can be what you say, memories of the pieces. But sometimes the pieces are built like that's not really an opportunity, or it's not a possibility. So I think different scales of works influence the topic in different ways. And that's why the scale of this work is in modularity, and something that we, in the, so to say, upcycling, pre-cycling, or pre-production phase, decided that there's a format that we can work with after. So that was the initial idea. We have to work with a format that we're capable of working after the PQ. So that came into the design as well, what Miodrag was talking about.
Yeah, you mentioned also important layer archiving and documentation. This became increasingly, sometimes even central part of. We realized in a couple of things. We were also making a, mocking up, making scene design for image we need to send to some media. I say, I'll move this yellow socks, this is good for media. Photographer, hey, go back in this corner and make it from the top, because we need this documentation to, honestly, to apply for money, to, tell our ministry how great we are, to attract people for program for next day. So there's a lot of things that, archiving is not only just preserving information for unknown person that will never come to see it again, So, and we have no time for coming back to the project. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges now to basically have time to reflect on its own work, because we are just jumping from one project to another, and like beautiful sketches and photos and catalogs are just staying wasted in the shelves. Anyhow, nobody reads anymore, so it's problem, like how this whole knowledge production. So I think what I notice in our work this year is that every day finish with the desire of the rare guest to carry on working on something with us, So it's just like, I think we will have at the end 10 projects as an outcome of a relation in between guest, us, hosting team, production team, and let's say you kind of visitors of this quadrennial. And I think this situation or these projects, let's say, were not possible if we were not physically all here, and having this space there. So I think it's kind of, I also myself, I'm discovering the layers of after work, because, if you have some open structure, you have to be also a bit flexible what can come. And if nothing comes, also means something, so.
Maybe we can, Sven, you have experience in large scale.
Yes, since we are also dealing mainly with ephemeral structures, for the ones who don't know, we are working like 10 people, 10 days or 2 weeks, just with our hands to build one of this structure. And so you put a lot of potential energy into it, which is then gone in a few weeks. And this is a part of actually of the whole project, that it becomes so ungraspable, you cannot grab it. You have to see it, to experience. It's very physically the experience. So, but at the end, the only what stays are some images. So this is what you are talking about. At the end, you have just pictures somewhere on the internet, and this is what is left. But I feel for myself that this whole project is actually one project. So you are always coming somewhere and building for these people there to experience it for a while, and then it's over, and then you go to the next place and you build it again. So it's not enough to see it and that you have the experience. No, you have to physically to feel it. So I think it's also with scenography, it's very similar, that you have a play which is such a short lifetime it has, and we cannot see old plays anywhere. It's like the internet, it's not presenting old theater plays, but during Corona it was possible. So many theaters opened their archives, and I remember I was watching like plays from Schaubühne from the 70s, Boto Strauss and Stein and whatever, which it was never a chance to see it and to see how dated they are already in some ways, you know, and I don't know why they don't give it on the internet free or to pay a little bit for it, but I think this archive and story about how to archive it, it's this topic we should talk about.
Thank you very much. We have two questions, and one is here and one after here.
Hi, I'm Louisa Poe. I'm from New York, and I'm actually on a little bit of a different side as a production manager and producer and events planner. So I'm really curious how you can simultaneously think about when you're conceiving and sort of the pre-planning and the pre-life of an exhibition, thinking about how to take it down, and not only from an artistic perspective, but also from a logistical and sustainability perspective, which you guys touched on a little bit, the sustainability and recycling. But in particular, I'm wondering if the PQ offers guidelines or assistance with that end, with the afterlife, both of the art and of the physical material in mind, and if not, how are you guys considering that, and how could it be better fostered to, how could the PQ better foster the afterlife of the exhibitions it puts on?
The thing is, I received an email yesterday or the day before about the PQ flea market. So the PQ offers a platform for exchanging, even selling or whatever, pieces of your works. But then we come to the concept of being a country that's not in the European Trade Union. So we have documentation, what we brought to Prague and the Czech Republic, so what we brought into the EU. This was the same concept was here in 2019. So we had a problem, everything that we bring in is on a list, how much it weighs, how much it's worth, and it has to come back to Serbia within a year. It's called Lata Carnet. So it's a document that really doesn't allow us to sell anything here. It forbids us to sell it because it's temporary import and export. So whoever is coming outside of this trade union has to do that. I'm not sure who's in the audience or has anything to, yeah. So that's why we'll respond to the PQ flea market that we can't participate in that. So that's the here. And the other logistical problems are in setting up the frame. So you set up a frame that you can work with. That's what we mentioned before. So you don't go beyond your capabilities, which we did, I think, in some previous projects. But now we scaled it into something that's logistically, financially, time-wise, and everything. We can work with it after. I don't know if anybody else has something to add.
Just, I haven't seen this PQ market, or
It's
I don't know what
Facebook
is this,
group, so
but
I guess you won't see
maybe
it.
since we cannot, we have to bring everything, you know, like you can buy my yellow socks from the second day, you know, you buy concepts, you know, you don't have to, you know, buy art pieces, you know, we are also having a lot of outputs there.
But you came from Berlin, so...
Yeah, so, and these socks
were
are then,
inside.
because I came from Berlin also, you know, double price, so, you know, because they are biodegradable. Or
We can sell the cardboard boxes that we sit on. Yeah. That's the only thing that came from Berlin.
yes.
We have a question over here. Oh, sorry, Giovanna, you were about to respond.
I just want to add, okay, it is from the perspective of PQ, and it is something that we really need to think, but also there are green protocols, green manifests, how we as applicants or participants should follow the principles of the philosophy of the organization and institution, or in this case PQ. So if we have that kind of guidelines from the beginning, it will be easier, not just in a sense of afterlife, but the whole protocol of working procedure during the event. I think it is also important direction for thinking about all stages of participation. So I think it is important for the huge, complex organization and responsibility for them to implement that kind of manifests or protocols, but with the real support and help to the participants which they can follow.
Yeah, I guess one or two questions. You tell us. The timer says 5.5 minutes, so
yeah.
You have it as well, I guess.
Hi, my name is Raymond Marius Boucher. I'm from Concordia University in Quebec, and I've been part of PQ since 1999. I've been designing, I've been bringing classes of students, and one of the questions that I'm wondering is how do we address the footprint, the carbon footprint, with us traveling from abroad, from all over the world, how PQ does, is there some kind of organization that PQ can suggest to everybody that would be valuable? And because there's a lot of organizations I hear that are pretending to be dealing with good causes, but I think that this is a really big one. And at the point I'm wondering if I'm going to lead teams to come back because of the climate changes and everything that is involved around that. I'm from Quebec, and right now, my area is burning up. So, I'm very concerned about these issues, and I'm wondering, how PQ are going to be addressing that in the future.
Okay, I guess this is for you, Ivana. From Serbia, you can't get here. You can fly and you can drive. So you can't get here in another manner that's less carbon footprinty.
Yeah, it is a huge question about the mobility in our field, in the theater field, not just about the artifacts and scenographies, but in general, how we as people from performing arts can do our performances around Europe, world, whatever. But I think it is also something that is connected to previous answer. If we have kind of protocols within the institution or organization, philosophies and things like that, then we will have also carbon calculator. And for each organization, it will be possible to count how many tons of CO2 they produce during the event. So it is something that for next stages or next years, it can be countable for reshaping the working procedures and how they are working on it. So I guess for us who can travel by ground transport, it is easier. But how we are organize all our professional practices, for example, coming here, or how to bring all this stuff, it is something that we need to calculate. And there are tools for that. It is not something that is not improved already. It is something that we just need to implement in our organizational practices and structures. I think it is something that organization must include from very beginning of planning the project.
Okay.
Yeah.
Philip?
Okay, Philip wants to add something. If there's another question, we can have one more, I guess.
Oh yeah, there is a question up there.
Hello, I'm Cha I'm studying at the Victorian College of Arts in Melbourne. I guess I could say I'm a scenographer, but still figuring it out. I'm curious about the title of the exhibition. I feel like it implies that exhibitions have a death, but you talk about materials sort of living on, and also ideas and experiences sort of getting brought on by other artists, getting inspiration and all that. So I guess I'm curious if there's a social justice sort of perspective here about how we can create experiences that inspire people to make change, which I guess is about exhibitions like living on or carrying on, I guess.
Regarding the title, it's a bit poetic, dramatic, and we do know
Nice.
that. It was about the ends of the exhibition. So here the exhibition ends on June 18th at 6 p.m. And the idea is what happens after that. Because from a production perspective, it's a new project after that. So we're thinking about what are the ideas and concepts of these new projects after the initial ones end, or not die. But sometimes they do. Sometimes we just take it apart and it's done. So that's regarding the title. And Philip, you want to add something?
I will only add, you inspired me with all this conversation, with it, which I think and how we should maybe develop our projects in the future. We are doing that, but because this is political question, the topic, and it's connected, and I think that the process of when we do these kind of projects, they should be very closely connected with production process, artistic process, whole collective needs and knowledge, because often you mentioned Venice, I don't know, in our context, artist drawing some sketch, someone is producing this, and there's a lot of trash. So I think, usually, and that's why I think that I like your project, and I hope that we'll have opportunity to show in Afterlife, in our context maybe, with some new people.
Hopefully, yeah. So I guess we should finish. The idea of the panel wasn't to bring conclusions. I guess you realized that midway somewhere. But the idea was to bring questions, and all of your questions and all of the questions here. And also the idea of the panel wasn't to end it here. So firstly, we can continue talking outside if you want to. And the idea is to develop a project out of this and develop a methodology that can be applied to the subject. So I would like to thank all of you first here that spoke, and then all of you that came, and invite you to talk more if needed outside.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Thank you very much, Sven. Thank you very much, Ivana. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you very much, Philip.